topic. Okay, we are now recording. So welcome to everyone who's arrived. I see Eileen Pease here, Beverly Davidson. So great to have everybody here. Thank you so much, Linda Daly. What today is about is how does your online reputation inspire conversations? And my special guest is Nader Nadernejad. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Nader in a few moments, and how I got to know him and why I'm so excited about today.
Thanks, Mary Jane. I'm really excited to participate. I appreciate the invitation and all the great work you do, and I'm excited to get started.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. So I want to start with looking at what is reputation. What is this about? As some of you know, I'm a real word nerd, so I did go and look it up. And it's from mid-14th century Latin, and it means credit or good image. But it also can mean to judge or suppose, believe, or suspect, right? And when I go to the Oxford English Dictionary, the beliefs or opinions that are generally held about someone or something, a widespread belief that someone or something has a particular habit or characteristic. Now, this doesn't mean that these beliefs are true, but they are widespread beliefs about someone. That is what makes up their reputation. So it makes sense, you know, with all that each of us has done and posted online in how many years now? I think I looked not too long ago and realized I've been on Twitter for 9 years, and LinkedIn much longer than that, and writing a blog for 11. So all of those things mean they're all out there, and they have contributed to my reputation, much the same as whatever you're doing on a daily basis on social or content you're posting. We've been talking a little bit before we got started here about posting on YouTube. So all of that stuff informs your online reputation. So when we think about that, what is that? What is that exactly? So I can think of what a reputation is when I'm networking face to face, and I'll meet somebody and I'll already have sort of an understanding in my mind of who they are because of their reputation. But I've never really thought about it in an online context in any big way. So I thought, well, how would one find out what their online reputation is? And then when you have an online reputation and you find out what it is, if you're not happy with it, can you alter it or can you amplify it? What can you do? I wanted to find out, and I thought you might want to find out. And so, voila, we now have Nader Nadernejad with us. And he is the director of Nadernejad Media, and he specializes in online reputation management, which is, to me, I love that it's so specific. I think that's fantastic. And he also provides hyper-local SEO and digital marketing services to business in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Now, his online reputation business, and he's going to tell us more about it, but I happen to know it's global. Just as we started today, he's just onboarded a new client in Australia. So his online reputation must be working really well because he's getting clients all over the world. He is in a lot of places online, but there's the link to his website. Remember, you'll be getting a copy of this slide deck, and also Nader will be sending you some updates as well. But quick story about how I met Nader, and then I'm going to let him do most of the talking. You were working at CKDU, right?
CKDU at Dalhousie, yeah.
Yeah. And I think my book had just come out. Is that fair to say?
That's right, yeah. And I remember you gave me a signed copy. And
but he phoned and asked me to come in and do an interview, which was very exciting. And then you told me a fantastic story. So Nader is a big fan of the phone. And how could I not love a person who's the big fan of the phone? You told me a great story about Peter Mansbridge. Can you repeat that for us?
Yeah. When I was, I was just thinking way back. I'm feeling old now. When I was in high school, I was working at a community radio station. I was volunteering, I should say, and I had this fear of using the phone. I had this fear of conversation, but really, I had this fear of being on the air. I was afraid to get on the air. First of all, I didn't like my voice. I didn't know if what I was saying was going to, generate interesting responses. So from this fear, I decided, you know what? I'm going to try to reach out to my heroes. I'm going to try to reach out to people who I look up to, people that I think are fearless. And I'm just going to see what happens. So I opened up my email and I just sent, emails to everybody that I could think of that may have some advice or who may be willing to speak with me in a radio interview. And one of those people that I reached out to was Peter Mansbridge, the former chief correspondent of CBC News. I thought, no way is he going to get back to me. And he sent me a message back and he said, Nader, my month is totally full. I can't meet with you right now. This is going to have to happen at another time. And I thought, okay, but I'm surprised that he responded. I didn't think that, my email, being in high school, being around 16 years old this time, was going to get a response. And then it was a couple months later, and I said, you know what? In his email, he did say that maybe later we could have an interview. So let me forward him on that email. And long story short, I forwarded him on that email, and we did a phone chat. And in that call, he gave me some really great advice, and it changed my perspective of using the phone and reaching out to your heroes.
Sorry, I was on mute. For those of you on the call that may be here from the US, CBC is our national news network. And I mean, yes, our private national news network. And so Peter Mansbridge was a big deal. He was the face of Canadian news on CBC for, I don't know, 20 years or something or longer. Okay, so Nader, what is an online reputation?
I say an online reputation is the first experience people have with your brand and the way that it makes them feel. But it's really an image. I mean, when you think of somebody, you think of them as representing something, or perhaps an industry or a field. Your online reputation basically encompasses the image that people have of you. And it's their first experience, generally the first experience that they have with your brand online, the first few things they read, the first links that they see. That's what's going to form their impression of your reputation and also inform the response about how they feel about you.
So when you're talking about online reputation management, what does the management part mean? Does it mean your reputation might not be good and you want to clean it up, or does it mean you want a better a greater reputation? What does it mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. The goal is to really manage and present the information about you online in the way that you want it to be seen and the way that you want it to be perceived. So I think online reputation management should be used by everybody, whether you have a really great online presence or really even if you have some negative media, negative publicity out there. I think everybody ranging from I have a stellar online presence to, okay, and I have to fix some things. I think everybody across the board can really conversion optimize and make use of online reputation management.
So if there's something online about yourself or your company or whatever, and you want to minimize its impact, how do you do that? Or is that the right place to start? I'll let you decide where we start.
That's a great place to start. So if there's something about you online that you don't like showing up, it's on the first page of Google. Generally, if it's ranking high, what we'll do is create a suppression strategy, or I'll recommend a suppression strategy. So what we do when looking at a link that we don't want to be there is we say, okay, how can we focus on some positive things that I'm doing? And how do we go about, using or implementing a creative strategy? So is there something I could publish or post that is better than this, that is positive, long forming content, because we have different ranking factors for things that will rank on Google search. And how much of it do I need to create in order to bury that negative content so that at least it's not the first experience that people are having with my brand? And there are several different ways to do this, ranging from search engine optimization factors to just using popular websites that are going to push your content further.
Oh, okay. So what would be some examples of a popular website that pushes your content further?
Yeah, well, there's a few places. One of the things that anybody can use right now today is social media. I mean, we had a member join the chat saying, I have an online presence already, and most of us do to some extent. And you mentioned, Mary Jane, I have a Twitter for 9 years. Having age social media platforms really helps because they tend to rank very high on Google because they have something called a high domain authority. And every website is assigned a domain authority between 1 to 100. And the higher the domain authority, it's only one ranking factor, but it's one of the most important ranking factors. It's going to establish whether your content ranks first or not. And generally, sites like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, any of the top social platforms generally have a domain authority of over 90. So we're looking at over 90, but even close to 97, 98. Wikipedia is another site that has a 98. And a 98 is one of the factors why whenever you Google something, Wikipedia ranks so high. It's because it has a lot of backlink, a lot of trust by Google, and it has a high domain authority.
I never would have thought of that. So there's a very big piece of information. I do a lot of research online. When I'm working on a project, when I'm trying to track down the right person to talk to within a company, of course I go to LinkedIn, but I do a lot of general Google searches on the person's name for a wide variety of reasons. And yeah, of course Wikipedia shows up, and of course Twitter shows up, but I never put it together with what you're saying. That's pretty cool. So all of us should create our own Wikipedia entry. Is that what you're saying?
If you qualify for a Wikipedia article, yes. And I've worked on projects like this in the past, and what you need is enough sourcing from mainstream news outlets. And the person writing the Wikipedia article has to be separate from the topic. So you can't write a Wikipedia article about yourself, or you can, but if you do, Wikipedia can't know about it. So usually we'll use an age Wikipedia account that already has some edit history, so that if you were to create a brand new account and just create a page about your name, a Wikipedia moderator can actually see, okay, this account was created 5 minutes ago. It's about this one subject. It's not sourced. And that's why we see Wikipedia platforms not stick, or pages when you try to post them.
Okay. So that right there is one of the values of working with you, is that you've already done that sort of back work and know exactly where to go to help somebody bury negative content, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, burying is one strategy. You also have removals, but removals meaning you have to either find something that the website is doing in terms of falsifying backlinks, or sending, if they're using, not black hat methods, we call it in the industry. So if I'm purchasing backlinks to my site and I hire, somebody to post 1,000 links linking to my site to make it rise, we can do that to unindexed links or have them removed or dropped in rankings. Or we can reach out to the publisher or the webmaster. Other than that, a suppression strategy is usually where we go. And the reason why I recommend placing your efforts on that to bury negative content is because at least every month you're making progress and you're moving the needle forward. Whereas if I just ask to remove something month after month, I might make zero progress. It might be all or nothing. So you kind of have to weigh that. Okay,
so it's a process and you get to measure it.
It's a measurable process, but it takes time, and it takes a lot of skill especially if you're publishing content and creating rich, engaging, meaningful content that's going to rank.
Okay. So Eileen is asking, she's not clear yet on how to use a popular website. So I think Eileen Nader's talking about making more use of a website like Twitter or YouTube,
Yeah.
or are there others besides social media channels?
Yeah, well, social media channels are the primary ones because they're free and then anybody can use them. And just to, this might be helpful. I think some best practices that you can use right now is making sure that your name, your first and last name, is in that social media profile. There are no misspellings. You're not going by, another name. If you can also add your name inside of descriptions and tags and inside of your post, that's also going to help and rank. But in terms of using other platforms, one great one is guest posting. So if I were to say, okay, Mary Jane, I have a negative article, I need to bury it right now. Can I write some content for your website? You post this content and you use my name in the H1 tag, you use my name in the lead, you use my name in the headline of the article, and let's drag in some multimedia because this is also a great ranking factor. Let's try that. What you're going to see is likely that article is going to rise. It might not be on the first page. It depends on what assets are already ranking. But that's also another method. And there are dozens of tactics from websites to guest posting to, I've seen people offer scholarships in their name to get .edu backlinks so that their .edu links rank very high because they're trusted by Google. And that's also another factor to outrank negative links. So there are dozens of tactics.
And Beverly Davidson is asking, how do you create a strong online presence?
Absolutely. I think it's about having a cohesive narrative and asking yourself, okay, what do I want to stand for? And how can I leverage this content to help me accomplish certain goals? So for you, that goal may be, okay, I'm applying to jobs and I want to look the best I can possibly look to a prospective employer. For somebody else, it might be, I want to book sales calls or I want to begin to convert on higher ticket calls because I need the social proofing that comes with that. So maybe I need some earned media, maybe I need some Twitter, posts ranking higher with retweets of people mentioning my brand. So you can kind of think about that and then reverse engineer. And what I recommend doing is building a communications plan. And it doesn't have to have a specific, format. I actually have a template for this too. If it helps, I can also send that out. But what I recommend doing is asking yourself, what is my focus statement? Who am I? What is that about? What are my goals? Who are my key audiences? And then from that, you can build your content pillars. And your content pillars can be, for example, Mary Jane talks about, the phone. So we can talk about conversations on the phone. We can talk about phone sales. We can break it down into different categories. And then from that, our content will flow.
Okay.
So but that keeps it on track and you create content.
And Linda's added, and I was going to add earlier too, what you were speaking about before about submitting guest posts. She said, aha, that's why everyone wants to guest post on my blog. And I get those probably one a day. And of course it's a company they want to promote on my website, often without even looking at my website. But anyway, now one of the things that Nader's done, and I want to get to it because we're going to run out of time, is he's done an audit of my online reputation, which I haven't seen, to see what that means, to give us all an illustration of what that means. So I'm going to stop sharing. Is that right, Nader?
Yeah, absolutely. Just give me a moment and I'll pull up the documents and then I'll share my screen as well.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second, guys, and then Nader's going to share his screen. And we'll see what this is all about.
Perfect. Just pulling it up now. Okay, and let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your
Looking
screen.
good?
We're looking at your desktop right now.
Perfect. Yes, it's not going to be as clean and nice as your slideshow,
Okay.
but I will just open this up. So this is the first page of rankings for Mary Jane. You can see some of the web assets that are ranking. We have thephonelady.com. We have Mary Jane's LinkedIn, another example of a high authority site that's ranking. What you're noticing to the right over here is called the Google Knowledge Graph. And what this does is it pulls information from trusted sites on Google's, and it compiles all that information into a little snippet. And you may have seen this for public figures. You'll notice it with Wikipedia pages, because Wikipedia is one of the primary sources for the Google Knowledge Graph. So you can also reverse engineer this. You can say, I need a knowledge graph because that's going to help with social proof. And Mary Jane already has it. So this is great. What we're looking at here on the first page is fantastic. Your Twitter is active, and for that reason, we're seeing some of your tweets populate here. For me, it's YouTube videos, but this is great. This is an example of a carousel, and this is showing some of your recent content. That means Google saying, this is relevant, let's pull it into the carousel and let's make it rank here. So that's looking really great. Off the bat, everything looks fantastic. I know we have limited time, so I've just delved into this, this first page here.
We've got a good 8 minutes, so.
Okay. And also Udemy is an example of an online education platform, and it also has a very high domain authority. So this is an example of why that's ranking as well. So off the bat, this looks great. We have social media ranking, we have the knowledge graph in the corner, we have the personal site, we have the professional experience, we have a carousel. It's looking good. But then we can delve even deeper into the analytics and some of the ranking factors. So I'll jump into this. And this is the Canadian search. We can search by any country using tools. But of course, we'll pull it up for Canada here. And I will see if, well, generally that opens, but I have another document that's a backup, so that's good. This will also show us some of the ranking factors and also where people are clicking. So as you can see, the phonelady.com is getting around 34% of those views. So people are clicking through to the site, and this is using online tools. But let's look at some of the ranking factors as well. DA is domain authority. So if you look over here, Mary Jane Cops, 98. So this is one of the factors as to why LinkedIn is ranking high. But you may be asking, well, this has a domain authority of 27, so why is it ranking higher than the LinkedIn? And it's because Google has decided that while this has a lower domain authority, it's more relevant. So even if you have, and not in your case, Mary Jane, but if somebody has negative articles or news in mainstream news outlets, which we'll look at that for large businesses or clients, that have large news features, and they say, how can we ever drop this? What guest post is going to drop? Publishers have the highest domain authority. So what's going to drop this news article of 95? And it's news content, which Google knows. Well, you can create a personal website, or you can create multiple sites. And you use your name, you publish about yourself, you create video assets, and this really helps as well. So while domain authority is high,
when you're talking about news, it doesn't necessarily mean being interviewed by the traditional media. It's about what you are publishing online.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. We notice for some negative online presence, what often happens is somebody's actually published in mainstream news where they've done something negative or unfortunate, and now it's the first ranking link. And no matter what they do, those are very hard to drop. Those are some of the hardest things to drop because publishers have the highest domain authority. And I don't think it's a very individual specific situation to be in, but that can always be mitigated. I think the number one thing, the crux of this is building a personal website. It's your portfolio, it's your home base, it's a piece of web real estate you have asset over. So I recommend everybody in this webinar right now, if you haven't already, build a personal site, showcase your best work, and then develop that strategy about what you want to be known for and where you want to go.
Matter. So in my case, obviously we're looking at thephonelady.com. Is there value in it being maryjanecops.com?
It's definitely a ranking factor. It used to, whether your name or your keywords were in your website used to matter a lot more than it does now. Now people used to just buy the keywords and then launch the site and then it would rank. Google has since rolled up updates, and they have, Hummingbird update. I don't remember all the names of them at this point, but it matters, but not as much. So if you can do that, I recommend doing it. Having your name inside of that web link will definitely help.
And does it matter anymore if it's you mentioned .edu ranking high. Does a .com rank higher than a .ca in terms of your online reputation?
I mean, it really depends. I've seen, it's going to depend on domain authority, the length of the content on the site. There's no direct answer. If you are in Canada, yes, it's likely to serve .ca results more often.
Okay.
If you're in Australia, it's going to oftentimes serve .au. Unless Google determines that, okay, although this is hyper-local content, it's not as relevant, it's not as noteworthy as this other content. And in that case, it will favor .com. Things like bounce rate on the site, clicks, backlinks, other links linking to that site. Generally, content over 1,000 words ranks better. Multimedia helps content rank better. So there's so many different factors.
So the idea, what I'm hearing, and I want to make sure I've got it right, is like, even if I had maryjanecops.com or .ca, if I wasn't consistently publishing new content, then it wouldn't matter anyway.
It likely wouldn't matter, especially because that site's been there for a long time. People can see here, we have a lot of clicks onto the site. It's ranking well, it's relevant, and also you likely have social bookmarking. So if you've linked from other social media platforms to your site repeatedly, Google can actually analyze and say, okay, wait, Mary Jane is linked from a Mary Jane Twitter and a Mary Jane LinkedIn hundreds of times. So this is likely our personal site. Let's move it up.
Okay.
And there are so many different factors to consider with the Google algorithm, but I think it would still rank even if you were to leave it. And that's what's great about a personal site.
Okay, so I'm going to let you know that this is your 1-minute warning.
Okay, yeah. I think I'd love to open the floor up to some questions. I think the only other relevant detail I would like to add is when you're seeking guest posts or if you're seeking mentions to your site and backlinks, a great tool is Help a Reporter Out, Haro, H-A-R-O. Yeah. And it's a great way to engage and get featured in news stories and really get some links to your site. So I'd be on the lookout for that.
So just to repeat that for everybody, Help a
Reporter Out. I'll see if I can, I'll add it in the chat.
Yeah,
and I'll stop the screen share.
And Eileen Pease is asking you a question. So she's had a website called eileenpease.com.
Great.
And her company, Dynamic Learning, also opens to that site. But now she's shifting the primary title to dynamiclearning.ca. Will that reduce her ranking?
It could. I mean, when you make those changes, you'll notice what has to happen is the website has to propagate. So when you point at a new domain, you may momentarily lose rankings, but Google, it'll do its best to say, okay, this is still relevant content. This is exactly, we want it to rank for the same things, because the on-site content, I'm guessing, isn't going to change so much. So there are factors, and you may notice a fluctuation, but generally it should return to the same spot. And if it doesn't, you can always keyword optimize it and do different things to signal that you would like it to.
Okay, so everybody, please don't hesitate to put some more questions in chat. I'm going to run through a few things, but remember, we'll stay on the call as long as there's questions. One thing I wanted to say about Nader's audit of my online reputation, and I'm sure there was more to it, but we talked too much, is he mentioned to me about Udemy, and I set up a course on Udemy, I'm going to say 4 years ago. I kind of lost track of time, and I've ignored it completely. So right away, he's telling me something that's important, that I should go back to Udemy and start paying a little bit of attention to it, because it ranks so high. And also people are clicking on it, right? And I've been ignoring it. Beverly Davidson, will this strategy work for direct sales?
Yeah, I think I think so. I think the most important thing is for direct sales is focusing on, you know, your conversion strategy as well. As long as people are finding you through that search and they're making it onto your site, then I think that's the best. Working through that process, the actual optimization on a granular level on your site would help. But definitely, I mean, with any form of sales, if you're to optimize everything ranking for your name, so you strategically think of, you know, what are the best headlines, what are the best things I can rank either for my business or for my personal brand, then it's definitely going to help with any form of selling.
Okay, great. So everybody, because you joined us today, you do end up with a digital version of this deck and early bird notice for upcoming webinars and other special offers. And you're also going to be added to lists for weekly tips, stories, and other updates from both myself and Nader. Remember, you can unsubscribe at any time. That's the secret part. We have coming up in November inspiring conversations by using your CRM. And we're going to have that conversation with Debbie Hartland McDonald. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm a big fan of CRM, so it'll be a great conversation. And also I want to direct you to my new coaching program under inspire-conversation.com. And so do check that out, because it's my passion to work one-on-one with people, and that would be awesome. So thanks everybody. We went 1 minute over. If there's any questions out there, just put them in chat. We are watching and we'll gladly stay on the call a little bit longer if there are questions. Thanks, Nader.
Thanks so much, Mary Jane. I really
half an hour
appreciate
went by a little too fast, didn't it?
it. Flew by. I really appreciate the chat. I was telling Mary Jane last time when we spoke, I always feel energized and refreshed after our conversations. And thanks for everyone for joining.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And we'll be having this webinar again. I think it's on the 22nd, right?
Yeah, very soon.
So if the conversation could go in a completely different direction. So if for some reason you have a question we haven't answered or anything else, don't hesitate to join us again on the 22nd. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nader. Great. Absolutely great.
Thanks again.
Let's see if I've missed anything. Yeah, everybody, thanks so much. I'm going to stop my share. Nader, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Mary Jane.
I will see you in...
Thanks so much.
Okay.
See you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.